So we're going to move on to question number 2, and Mary Roth is the designated hitter there. Given your experience, what leadership actions generally would you recommend to facilitate interdisciplinary learning in STEM? What strategies can you suggest for creating the kinds of environments that foster the work? What strategies can be used to maintain the momentum even in challenging budget times? Mary.
The real challenge is answering that in 5 minutes. But when given that question as being my question to lead, I went back both looking at my own project, some of the responses that the panel gave when we were first discussing the various questions, and I also went through the various PCAL projects to look at what things they had pointed out as being leadership actions and strategies. And I really found there were 6 categories, and I tried to reduce it to 3, but it didn't work. So there are 6 categories. And they all need to play a part. They don't all need to play a part at the same time. They can come in at different times. But let me list them. One is to make interdisciplinary learning a strategic initiative. And that may be that it's in your mission, it may be in your strategic plan, or it may just be that it is something that your leadership talks about and values and puts into their communication so that people know that this is something that's going to go forward and has value at the institution. The second area is to align, or in some cases, create policies. And one of the things, certainly on our campus, when we started with a number of interdisciplinary initiatives, not only in STEM but in some other fields, was a real uproar from the faculty that we can't move forward on these initiatives until we have a way to hire and to allow current faculty to move into these positions and be evaluated and promoted in those positions. And so there was a real need to create a policy that let us do that. And that was one of the first things that we did as a campus, was to create a new policy that allowed people to be hired interdisciplinary, to move into interdisciplinary fields if they were already there, or to move back out if they wanted to go back into a more traditional field. So aligning policies is very key in terms of a strategy and an action that needs to happen. You need to create a team. If you've got an initiative and you're moving forward, and there was a lot of discussion in the PCAL groups about the team and the aspects that worked and didn't work. And I was trying to think this morning what the key words as I went through some of the comments again. It needs to be a team that values transparency, because these things need to be talked about on campus and they need to know what's happening. They need to be connected folks so they can facilitate the discussions that are going to have to occur all across campus, and they need to be learners. They can't come in thinking they already know the answer, because it's going to evolve. And I think everything we saw in the PCAL projects were evolving learners. Some of the most successful teams I think were out there actually changed their focus because they learned as they went along that things were a little bit different than they had anticipated. It also helps to have a project shepherd, and it's a PCAL term for buildings, but we actually found it was very effective in the teams that we had on our campus with respect to connecting the team that was working to the administration, to the resources, to the changing climate. Our teams were very connected to what was happening in the administration with the economy because there was a shepherd who was between the two that kept them involved. So that's 3. The 4th one, focus on student learning outcomes. Really talk to your teams about having outcomes, focusing that way. They create amazing bridges between disciplines. They change the conversation from inputs, what course can you offer to help me, to outputs. What are we trying to do for our students? What are they going to learn? What are they going to be able to do and know when they come out of the program? And just that switch in the conversations really decreases some threat level to departments and programs, because they can participate from their own sources of strength, because they can go to the outcomes, not necessarily the inputs, the resources. And if you have outcomes, ask for them, and ask for them to be assessed, and ask for those results so that you can show that you're really valuing it and you want to learn from what they're learning. The 5th one, connect to resources. That's kind of clear. They need people, they need funds, they need space, and they need support. And that may be as simple as having a teaching and learning center to help them actually innovate in their classes and create the spaces you want for the students to learn. And the final one, acknowledge and celebrate often, as many times as you can. Bring it up and celebrate what's going on so that people know that you're appreciating the work that they're doing and that you are recognizing how hard it is to do these types of initiatives.
Any other comments from panelists? Mary did a fabulous job summarizing. One thing I was thinking, I know, was, geez, how long does all this take? And what kind of, wow, that's a lot. But anyway, maybe somebody can comment on that. Or others providing Tom.
Mary did a great job of capturing virtually everything I could think of that one might do, except the only addition I might make, and this is sort of a way of celebrating, is to create visibility for programs that are successful. And that's more than just celebrating. It might be naming them in some way that, and I don't mean with a donor's name necessarily, although that would help, but just naming it, holding it up in a way that is permanent to the rest of the campus so that they recognize its importance. It's a sort of a small way of celebration, but an important one. Because I do think that particularly the leadership of the campus has to put your fingerprints on it in some way that makes people understand its importance if you want it to survive and be successful and ultimately garner resources.
Any other comments from the panel?
Well, one of the things that in terms of leadership, and as I was thinking about the way in which the various projects, and you'll have the opportunity to see what these are over lunch, is the idea that there's always kind of this push-pull process between is it top-down, is it bottom-up, and what is the relationship? And without kind of a mutual understanding of that, I like the idea of a project shepherd who communicates effectively to the leadership and support and is able to articulate how it is that this project accomplishes the mission, strategic goals of the institution, as well as provides the encouragement and hopefully resources for a particular project at the ground level. So it's a really somewhat of a push-pull responsibility of these teams.
Thanks, Terry. One of the things you saw from our post-program survey is that a lot of the teams at some point spoke about the problems within their departments, overcoming department barriers and territories and those kinds of things.